Hello everyone, my name is Mark Valdez and today I'm speaking on looking at Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul from a Jungian perspective. Carl Jung's psychological work influences both television shows. Carl Jung believed in the importance of myths and symbols in human psychology and helped popularize a number of Asian religious ideas in Western society, including yoga. Jungian influences jostle with Hopi and Surrealist influences to make up Vince Gilligan's aesthetic. Mutual support groups are very important in both television shows. Carl Jung helped inspire Alcoholics Anonymous, the very first mutual support group. On the left here we have the triangular AA logo. In the center we have Joseph Campbell's diagram of Carl Jung's model of the human psyche. If you combine these two symbols together, you get the Breaking Bad car wash logo. Have an A1 day. Joseph Campbell's diagram is redrawn here on the left. The upper half of the circle represents the conscious mind, which is driven by the ego. The lower half of the circle is the wisdom consciousness of the human body, which shelters the shadow, equivalent to Sigmund Freud's unconscious mind. The boundary in between is the threshold of consciousness. The drawing on the left can be extended to the city of Albuquerque, a living legacy of the city of Chicago. Just as nightmares rise up from the unconscious mind, entanglements from Chicago's past rise up to complicate life in Vince Gilligan's Albuquerque. The threshold between Albuquerque's present and Chicago's past is a veil represented by opaque windows, particularly glass block windows. The widespread use of glass block windows was pioneered in Chicago. Chicago's influence is often present when you see glass block windows. Carl Jung was interested in the synthesis of the self, which proceeds from a clash of opposing symbols called archetypes within the unconscious mind, which resolves itself in emotional expression. The visual backgrounds of these shows act as a reservoir of symbols. There are three kinds of symbols. Simple ideograms have the same consistent meaning throughout the shows. The meaning of compound ideograms, like glass block windows, can change depending on context. And then there are a large number of archetypical symbols, which can be used singly, but are more powerful when used together, particularly with opposing symbols. It is useful to follow a standard Jungian approach and place archetypical symbols from these shows into two categories, either the familiar light or the unfamiliar shadow. Symbols belonging to the outer world of modern objects and architecture are part of the light. Symbols belonging to the inner world of surrealist art are part of the shadow. Greek, Roman, and Christian beliefs represent the old world and are part of the light. Native American beliefs, particularly Hopi myths, represent the new world and are part of the shadow. Old media includes the golden age of Hollywood and belongs to the light. New media includes video games and belongs to the shadow. Complete grids, the most common symbols in these television shows, belong to the light. Arrays of parallel lines, which are the disassembled incomplete pieces of grids, are the second most common group of symbols and belong to the shadow. The only pair of symbolic categories that are equally familiar to everyone, because they are so common, are complete grids representing rationality and incomplete grids representing something less than rational. Presenting complete and incomplete grids together creates emotional tension in the unconscious mind that must be expressed emotionally, often as judgments. The showrunners love to hide things by placing them in direct plain view. Priming effects are the unconscious influences of prior stimuli on people's subsequent behaviors. Priming effects can be delivered either subliminally or supraliminally. The conscious mind can't easily discern subliminal priming because the messages are too brief, nor supraliminal priming because the messages are thought to be part of the background and not messages at all. The creative teams want to engineer emotional reactions to the actions of Skyler White and Chuck McGill at work. First, the audience must become familiar with these symbols. The first use of incomplete grids in Breaking Bad comes in the pilot episode. We see Bogdan badgering Walter White against a backdrop of vertical blinds. The unconscious minds of the viewers grasp that Walt's situation is undesirable and associate it with the array of parallel lines. In the second episode of Breaking Bad, Skyler asks Walt who Jesse Pinkman is. Viewed against a backdrop of Venetian blinds, an array of parallel lines, Walt lies and says that Jesse sells him pot. Skyler is aghast. She has grid elements on her side of the room, particularly this grid cell, a sonogram of unborn Holly. Skyler represents order and responsibility. In contrast, Walt is embarrassed and looks like a flake. Shortly afterwards, Skyler confronts Jesse. Framed against the parallel bars of Jesse's gate, Skyler now has an incomplete grid on her side. Skyler is the disruptor. She is interfering with every man's sovereign right to move dead bodies around on their property as they see fit. Jesse tries not to panic at Skyler's intrusion. As Skyler departs, Jesse closes the gate. The parallel bars of the gate come together with the front window of the RV to make a complete grid. Order is restored. Skyler's shocking intrusion teaches viewers' unconscious minds that she doesn't blindly embrace either order or disorder. Skyler chooses as she sees fit, which makes her unpredictable and maybe dangerous. Subsequently, on occasions when Skyler is at work, we see complete and incomplete grids together in Jungian conjunctions that I call judgment points. A judgment point is a Jungian conjunction made up of a complete grid and an incomplete grid together. Breaking Bad judgment points likely have their strongest effects on audience members who are conflicted about women in the workplace. For example, men who feel neglected because their wives work, or perhaps women who resent having to work rather than staying home with the kids. These vulnerable audience members are prime candidates for manipulation. In Breaking Bad, when Skyler first sees Ted Beneke, here on the left, we see a complete grid embedded in the security glass of the window and an incomplete grid of Venetian blinds. On the right, after Ted flatters Skyler with attention, we see how Skyler hesitates to put a picture of Walt and Jr. on her desk. We see the grid of glass block windows on the side of her office and the incomplete grid of parallel horizontal bars. Susceptible members of the audience are being primed to get very judgy about Skyler. Later, Walt decides to throw a potted plant through the security glass at Ted Beneke. Skyler is on the stairs with grids on her right and Venetian blinds on her left. She has a choice. She decides order is best in this situation and tells Walt to stop. Ted is presented with the same choice and he chooses order as well. In season 4 of Breaking Bad, the car wash office becomes Skyler's central workplace. The unconscious minds of viewers are repeatedly badgered for their opinions about Skyler at multiple judgment points in this crowded space of glass block windows and vertical blinds. The unconscious minds of viewers can't ignore the repeated juxtaposition between the complete and incomplete grids, usually with Skyler bracketed in the middle, as seen here on the left, between the gridded rack of greeting cards and the vertical blinds. People who like Skyler or who have no issues with women in the workplace are not affected. Other viewers are getting unaccountably angry. Different sets of viewers can have substantially different reactions, even though they are all watching the same material. And again, just how judgy can the audience be led to be? Glass block windows and vertical blinds are seen here on the left. A scheduling whiteboard grid and vertical blinds are seen on the right. I've always wondered why there were so many people who really disliked Skyler. Playing these people was apparently what the showrunners wanted from the start. In Better Call Saul, the character of Chuck McGill is based partly on the Greek philosopher Diogenes. Chuck thrusts his lantern in Jimmy's face just like Diogenes did to the people in ancient Athens, looking for any honest man. Here on the right, a bust of Diogenes is visible as a bookend in Chuck's house. At home, Chuck is surrounded by parallel lines, particularly Venetian blinds, as seen here on the left. The exterior facade of Chuck's house is dominated by parallel lines, some vertical, some horizontal. Complete grids aren't very common, except in the ceilings. Chuck's gridded ceilings are shown only at times of conflict and only for the purpose of making judgment points. Fifi is the episode of greatest conflict, where a minimal amount of theatrical smoke is used so the audience can best see Chuck's ceiling. Conflict swirls around the tape that Chuck surreptitiously makes of Jimmy's confession. The ceiling becomes visible, for example, when Ernie accidentally plays the tape or when Jimmy tries to destroy the tape. The same Jungian principles apply to other characters. It's not a given that some audience members will react with anger when presented with archetypical opposites, only that they are likely to have a strong emotional reaction of some sort. In the Breaking Bad episode Granite State, Todd meets Lydia at the Grove restaurant and informs her that he has enslaved Jesse. Lydia flashes a grid on her purse flap in approval. The vertical bars of the window frames complete the judgment point. In reaction, the audience generally finds Todd and Lydia to be almost equally creepy. I've often wondered why the showrunners chose the Grove for a filming location. These windows are the reason. Mike and Nacho have their own judgment points when they meet in this curious structure full of grids and parallel lines at the rail yards. Viewers love Mike and Nacho unreservedly. And occasionally, with the copper ceiling strips and the glass block windows at Wexler McGill, the audience is asked to judge Kim and Jimmy, protagonists whom they mostly like. Judgment points may have first arisen in other TV shows. In the 2009 AMC remake of The Prisoner, the protagonist number 6's residence has both parallel beams in the ceiling and glass block windows. There are likely influences in common between these two AMC TV shows. The contrast between complete and incomplete grids is also present in Vince Gilligan's new science fiction television series, Pluribus. Judgment points are present in Pluribus too. On the left, our unconscious minds are primed to judge Carol when she writes down her observations about the hive on a whiteboard. We are not invited to judge Carol when she drugs Zosia, but we are invited to judge her when she covers Helen's grave with a grid of paving stones against a backdrop of the parallel lines of the yard's Ocotillo fencing. It's possible to use other archetypical symbols to make more sophisticated conjunctions that can be tailored for just a few people or even for just one person. We can make an educated guess about how Chuck acquires electromagnetic hypersensitivity. My hunch is that the peacock fireplace screen in Chuck's dining room is the source of his trouble. In the episode Bingo, Chuck begins to show signs of recovering from his ailment. In the next episode, Rico, Jimmy obtains bags of spoliated Sandpiper Crossing receipts, the largest collection of parallel lines ever, and lays them all out in front of the peacock fireplace screen like a sacrifice. Jimmy knows Chuck will spend hours reassembling the receipts in close proximity to the peacock screen, thereby reviving and reinforcing the ailment. The peacock fireplace screen is Art Deco in nature, yet the individual feathers have eyes on them, surrealist elements. The opposing archetypical categories of Art Deco and Surrealism are incorporated into a single object that can cause psychological distress to vulnerable people. The peculiar nature of Chuck's fireplace, with one chimney but two separate openings on opposite sides of the wall, means that the peacock screen is often visible to Chuck even when he's lying on his couch in the other room. And people are at their most suggestible when they are lying down. And just a quick aside about the picture on the left, we see Jimmy arching his back as he puts together these spoliated receipts. In Pluribus, Manussos does the same sort of arching of the back in front of his ham radio. So in a sense, these two things are equivalent. Carl Jung was interested in causality and never gave up on the possibility that paranormal events do occur. Coincidences interested him greatly, as did synchronicities, which are coincidences so profound that they feel like the hand of fate. Here I've mapped out the coincidences and synchronicities of these TV shows with small and large dots respectively, and by season and episode. Better Call Saul has fewer synchronicities than Breaking Bad. Much of Better Call Saul is concerned with the manufacture of fake coincidences, which suppresses real coincidences. Synchronicities offer opportunities for the creative teams to send messages to narrow slices of the viewing audience. Just when hatred against Chuck reaches a fever pitch early in season 3, one of these synchronicities offers an opportunity for Gus's timeline to interact with Chuck's timeline in order to offer a dissonant perspective on Chuck's fate to just the video gamers, that subset of people most like those on the creative team. Mike Ehrmantraut tracks his gas cap to an electrical substation. One of Gus's men is completing a word search puzzle, ostensibly on the subject of space travel. One of these words appears to be Apollo, but an extra R tacked on the front of the name turns it into Rapollo, a pivotal character in the video game Dishonored 2. Players in Dishonored 2 can either allow or prevent guards from pushing the character Rapollo into an electrically powered wall of light, thereby killing him. The guards say that Rapollo committed suicide by running into the wall of light, but game players know that the guards pushed and killed him. Chuck is getting pushed closer and closer to his own wall of light. Notice the image on the right, which shows Chuck trying to call Dr. Cruz while standing in front of a neon-lit storefront. The camera smears the storefront into an imposing wall. The implication here is that Chuck's suicide is no more plausible than Rapollo's suicide. Chuck didn't run into his wall of light, he was pushed. After rescuing Jimmy McGill from Colombian mercenaries in season 5 of Better Call Saul, Mike Ehrmantraut shows Gus a drawing of an hourglass-like tattoo seen on the neck of one of the mercenaries. What does this symbol mean? I recognize this symbol from my days studying physics. It's a Minkowski diagram rendered in cylindrical coordinates. Hermann Minkowski, a Polish mathematician, started creating these helpful diagrams in 1908 as he scrambled to catch up with Albert Einstein's theory of special relativity. Space is portrayed on the horizontal hyperplane of the present. Time is portrayed vertically, with the past below the plane and the future above it. Cones represent the speed of light, the fastest that a signal can travel to or from an observer. Events that occur within the cones can potentially be causally connected with the observer. Events that occur outside the cones cannot be causally connected with the observer and so belong to the paranormal. The hourglass-like tattoo implies that the presence of Colombian mercenaries in Jimmy McGill's life is paranormal. The hourglass symbol appears to mean, I am not supposed to be here. When Kim Wexler resigns from Schweikart and Coakley, we see an hourglass on Rich Schweikart's desk and we see Kim's own hourglass shape. Hyperplane blades from the Venetian blinds cut both hourglasses in half, as seen in Minkowski diagrams. Kim is no longer supposed to be at Schweikart and Coakley. I'll start wrapping up this talk by showing how the showrunners sometimes reveal hidden things. For example, I like how the showrunners of Better Call Saul put their favorite symbols on their DVD covers. On the season 1 cover, they update Salvador Dali's surrealist painting, Disembodied Telephone in the Desert. For season 3, they honored the parallel lines of incomplete grids. For season 5, the showrunners honor the shredded grid, a form of broken grid. For season 6, Gene Takovic is showing putting on a red coat, an apparent reference to Mary Poppins. In the 2004 stage musical Mary Poppins, the title character puts on a red coat shortly after returning to her employer, the Banks family, after a long absence. With her abrupt departures and returns and her surrealist umbrella, Mary Poppins acts very much like a Hopi Kachina, a spirit with a deep interest in ordinary life. Bert the Chimney Sweep acts like a Kachina too. Chimney sweeps are very compatible with Hopi symbolism. Gene Takovic's adventure in Omaha is a parable about striving too hard to become a Kachina in the Hopi land of the dead. Gene puts on the red coat because he must give up his quest to become a Kachina and return to the land of the living as a human being. Kim Wexler is both authoritative and prim, very much like Mary Poppins, who may be her model. Just like Mary Poppins says of herself, Kim is practically perfect in every way. Chuck McGill's neighborhood features coach lantern-style streetlights, a decidedly English look. These streetlights are marked by my stubby arrows here in the center, and were installed by the Better Call Saul crew and are not present in the actual neighborhood. Until now, I found their presence to be completely mysterious, symbols with unknown meaning. In the musical Mary Poppins, coach lantern-style streetlights are an important visual element. Bert the Chimney Sweep acts as a lamplighter in order to help guide troubled Mr. Banks back home. Troubled Chuck McGill needs help to find his way to his final home, and the streetlights are there to guide him. Mary Poppins also features a talking shop where one can purchase interesting conversations or make new words like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Better Call Saul has something more depressing, a self-help talking shop where people can talk and lie as well with few consequences. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?